Here's what I'm thinking, all right? And this is very much box fresh, so it might fall apart faster than a cheap suit in the next 6 or 7 minutes. But who's going to be pleased today, and what are they going to be pleased about? So I imagine that some MPs are going to be pleased that they won't have to defend this on the doorstep, but they are going to have to defend this on the doorstep because everybody is going to be saying, what the hell were they thinking? And you went along with it. With a few exceptions like Michael Gove and Grant Shapps, goodness me, then the claim that this somehow shoots the fox of the policy is ridiculous. They're going to have to defend it. They're going to have to explain how the hell they remain in lockstep with a government that was preparing to give thousands and thousands of pounds to the highest earners in society while doing precious little for everybody else. So I don't think, let's just work it through, shall we, one by one. I don't think anybody's going to welcome this except Tories supporting high earners. No, they're not going. Who didn't think they deserved it. So, I mean, I suppose non-Tory supporting high earners who didn't think they deserved it are going to sort of welcome it, but people like me think that the government is absolutely appalling. So it's hardly going to nudge my needle in direction of warmth. I think it's outrageous that it was announced in the first place and ridiculous that they've U-turned. You welcome the U-turn as you wait to see where the money goes. You welcome the U-turn, but you don't, I think, feel any warmer today towards this government than you did yesterday. In fact, they've made it worse because the cabinet will now be furious. Furious about two things. Furious about three things. Furious about the U-turn, furious about the original policy, and furious about the fact that they were only given 2 minutes warning that it was about to be abandoned. The parliamentary party will be furious about three things. Furious about the policy, furious about the U-turn, furious about the fact that they only got a 2-minute warning in the middle of conference. Remember, this is supposed to be the lap of honour. This is supposed to be the best week of Liz Truss's life. This is supposed to be the high five moment of her entire career. And they are abandoning in real time and glorious technicolor a policy that was still being defended this morning on the front pages of the Tory press. I'll say that again because occasionally you have to pinch yourself. This policy was still being defended this morning on the front pages of the Tory press. And of course, yesterday morning when she appeared on the BBC, well, you can remember what was happening.
Are you absolutely committed to abolishing the 45 pence tax rate for the wealthiest people in the country? Yes.
That was 24 hours ago, almost to the minute, speaking to Laura Kunsberg on BBC One. So, credibility already shot to pieces sinks still further. Support already non-existent slips still further. And trust already gone disappears ever further over the horizon. I can't quite believe I'm saying this, and I'm very keen to hear you challenge it, but I think they've made everything worse, not better. If they'd stuck with it, they could have claimed consistency, they could have claimed determination, they could have claimed, vindication at some unspecified point in the future, just as with Brexit. Look how well that's worked for them over the last. It's just you wait and see. Any minute now, those benefits are going to start queuing up and accruing. They'll be backed up at Dover like the lorries are, all those benefits. They'll be laying siege to the United Kingdom, all those Brexit benefits. So just any minute now, just be patient, just believe a little bit more. They could have done that. I just don't see who this works for. It's not going to make anybody who was furious last week go, oh, my mistake, they're all right, this lot. Oh, or is it? I mean, I don't know. I just don't see it myself. It's not going to assuage potential rebels in the party because essentially they've now added weakness to incompetence. And I can't see any ordinary punter apart from... No, I can't even see that. I'm trying to imagine. So the people who will be very cross about it are going to be high-earning Tories. So, in fact, they've alienated supporters. Who was in favour of this tax cut for the rich in the first place? I mean, apart from forelock-tugging idiots who somehow end up supporting inequalities that they're on the wrong end of. And God knows they're a very important force in British politics, have been for almost 100 years. But I will never, I don't think, be able to break through the thickness of their skulls to point out that the poor man at the rich man's gate is not there because of God's will or because of some inherent hierarchy of intellectual or social superiority or inferiority. The rich man's in his castle, the poor man's at his gate, because we live in a horribly unfair society. But some of the people on the wrong end of that continue to think that they're somehow on the right end of it, and that it is somehow just. So apart from them, who you will never be able to logically analyse, who's going to defend the original policy? Answer: high-earning Tory supporters who welcome the extra thousands of pounds that would have been left in their bank accounts under the new policy. So who's going to be cross about the climb down? Who's going to be unhappy about the climb down? Who's going to be unsupportive of the U-turn? Answer: high-earning Tory supporters who were going to be thousands of pounds better off. Now, they're not going to be queuing up to shout from the rooftops, are they? Because even they probably possess enough self-awareness to realise what a bad look that would be. Even they probably understand that actually saying, oh, it's great this, apparently they might even be cutting benefits, but I'm 10 grand a year better off, is not going to play well anywhere, perhaps except the golf club. So they're going to be upset, which means their needle has nudged. They've been literally had a little bit of a treat dangled in front of them and then snatched away by Kwasi Kwarteng. So that's the question. Have they actually made it worse? I mean, listen, it's partly driven, of course, by my desire not to be too simplistic at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. I don't like coming on air and saying, here's something that's happened. What do you think of it? I always feel that we enjoy each other's company more of a morning when we dig a tiny bit deeper into the issues, whatever those issues may be. But that is really what I'm asking. I mean, A, what do you think of it? But B, he's made it worse, hasn't he? Because he's added... It's not just the U-turn, it's the language of the U-turn. The claim that we're only doing it because everybody condemning it was distracting from all the brilliant stuff that was also contained within the budget that wasn't a budget. He's made it worse in the tone as well as the content of that U-turn. He's patronising you by saying, well, you know, there's nothing actually wrong with the policy, but everybody's getting their knickers in a right old twist about it, so we're going to abandon it anyway in order to focus on the stuff that is really good. It doesn't wash that. Why did you bring it in the first place if it's so easily jettisoned? Why did you risk such epic political criticism if it was something that you were only temporarily or loosely committed to? You staked the house on this, Kwasi Kwarteng, and you lost. What you've done essentially is try to pull your chips back from the middle of the table before the roulette wheel has stopped spinning. And you're not allowed to do that. There's not a casino in the world that allows you to do that. I'm not a habitué of casinos, but I've watched a lot of James Bond films, so I consider myself to be something of an expert. He's pushed all the chips into the middle of the table. The wheel started spinning. Everybody else in the casino, whose chips he's actually borrowed, is screaming at him that he's made a terrible mistake. So he's trying to pull his chips back before the wheel has stopped spinning. And you might be allowed to do that in politics, but you're not allowed to do that in casinos. And everyone was talking about risk last week, so I don't think this analogy is weak. I think it might actually be rather clever. Everyone was talking about risks and gambles and it will pay off or it won't pay off. He's pushed all of the chips, his political chips, the credibility and trust chips, never mind the fiscal hit that the country will never recover from. The people who made millions of pounds by betting on the plummeting pound keep that money. It doesn't go back into the pot. It doesn't get redistributed or confiscated. As the policy which tanked the pound is abandoned, or the people who made fortunes from betting on a tanking pound, they're still often the people who claim to be patriotic, by the way, in the context of Brexit and other issues. They don't lose that money. They keep it forever until the next massive gamble that comes along when they can do it. So he's pushed all of the chips of credibility and trust, the chips of Kwarteng and Truss. He's pushed them all into the middle of the table. And he's trying to pull them back before the wheel has stopped spinning. And that's why, the more I talk about it, the more I convince myself that he has actually, although I welcome the U-turn, the personal financial hit to me notwithstanding, although I welcome the U-turn and I think that it was unsustainable and unjustifiable, I think in purely political terms, he's just made everything worse.